I'm currently playing MAP09 of the old map compilation, which used to be called World.wad, because I think I was trying to build a bit of a bigger map this time. We've gone for quite a consistent theme here for a change. A bit of an obvious secret here with probably an unnecessary megasphere, I imagine. So there we get on. It's a bit of a rougher start here, having to take on a couple of manx guys straight off the bat, chain gunners too. And I'm fairly certain I remember there being a secret here as well. Now, as I've already triggered 3 out of the 5, that would suggest to me that I've double tagged that one where I had to go through the bookcase earlier. It's pretty heavy use of the Doom 2 enemies here. I suppose maybe a commitment to adding a bit of challenge. I think I was mapping broadly to my playing abilities at the time, so it probably would mean that as I got better, the maps got steadily harder. Now this, I think, is a room that would have benefited from a bit of height variation, just to step down into this, although perhaps the required bordering around the cages there was beyond my design imagination at the time. Pretty standard trap here. Probably worth bearing in mind here with some of these visuals, particularly stuff like this, that when you're using DEU, you don't get a visual mode or any sort of representation of what the rooms are going to look like before firing up the game. So I imagine it was probably more just putting things in and guessing how they'd look, sort of hoping for the best from there. So another map that uses disjointed teleporter-based progression. I happen to remember that the sort of main floor and ceiling textures in this room are actually the defaults for DEU. So probably why you get a transition there across the floor, even though there shouldn't really be one, and why it doesn't match the upper textures there. I'm having to get these secrets from memory, to be honest, although the map would give it away if I looked. I see the doors are still quite chunky, but it almost looks like it was mapped on 32 grid, to be honest. Now here's a very visually obvious monster closet. It used to be that the belief was that there needed to be a connection, like a physical connection between the play area and where the enemies were. I think it's because it didn't have a way of joining sectors like we do in most editors. So there'd always be some sort of sound tunnel, and this is like a really crude one of those. You can sort of hear the enemies walking up and down there, waiting to teleport in. Now, unfortunately, I happen to know that this is a very slow teleporter. There's another double secret there. So really only 3 secrets for this map. Again, this is the sort of thing that a 3D mode would have told me wasn't worth it, or I would have changed the light texture. Of course, there wasn't really anything stopping me going back and iterating what I was doing. I could have, after seeing that this didn't fit, used one of the T-lights with the grid of 4. That could have worked. But for whatever reason, I decided not to. I think there was a bit of a keenness back then to just move on with things. As soon as something was finished, I was very sort of quick to try and start something else and move on to something else. And a large part of that would have been that the editor was actually quite unreliable. It was very easy to rush up against limits or just have the map randomly get eaten by the mode builder. I think the limits were quite harsh for me because I think the editor actually uses your RAM, and it actually had a memory thing, and it would tell me how close I was to exceeding the memory limit. And I suppose one benefit here of this room is that it does actually use sort of detailing sectors and textures as well. So from a sort of aesthetic perspective, although it's still quite crude, blocky, and textures aren't used particularly well, there are elements of sort of modern mapping. Shame about these really thick doors and the slow teleporter. This is clearly inspired by Downtown, perhaps a bit too tall. That Revenant up there is a threat if you stand in that doorway and literally nowhere else. Unfortunately, this is quite a large area which very little happens. I remember it's pretty much could just be a corridor between the buildings, because aside from those chain gunners up there and this narrow window, there's not much engagement here that suggests it's an open area that needs fighting in. It's a handy feature of GZDoom here is no requirement to be caught out by infinitely tall shenanigans. Kind of surprised I didn't put anything in the spaces back here. Give the player something to get. Some sort of secret or reward for exploration. Check out this building first. It's nice that I've done it so the door isn't infinitely tall, but it's a shame the door's as thick as the very chunky wall. Sort of maybe a hotel reception desk here being produced. Some unbelievably steep stairs. I think that imp actually benefits there from being hidden at stairs, so you don't see him until you're most of the way up. So that's one benefit of steep stairs that you don't get with the shallow stairs that are probably more common in more appearance-oriented maps. There's a lot of large open space and very little to recommend it though. I think in trying to be a bit more ambitious with what the player can see, I haven't really matched that in terms of what the player can fight and what the player can do with the area. Little things like making the textures upper or lower unpegged would have gone quite a long way too. Quite a lot of chain gunners here, but with the early Megasphere, the threat's pretty neutered. Plus there's a lot of ammo and health sitting about. Again, probably quite indicative of my ability. Now this, I think, was directly inspired by Plutonia, because that, in there, is just a visibility obscuring non-solid bit. Obviously it's very chunky, and as I remember it, the ones in, I think, Impossible Mission would have been a bit more aesthetically pleasing, but it's the same sort of idea. So I was taking outside influences on board, getting a bit more height variation, willing to use a bit more of the cast. It's definitely a learning curve that you've seen in these videos so far, and it probably will continue to be that for a while. I think I'll just leave him, to be honest. Now, fairly certain this ending room here, with the space, is going to be quite limited. Probably the first element I was put in a map that wasn't just like a blob full of enemies. Relatively thin door. If it weren't for the cut-offs and the fact that this blood's just level with the door frame, might be alright. This is also a clear example of why you need to cut your textures off properly, because, I mean, why would the blood stop before without there being some sort of lip? That's your exit switch there. So, I'm guessing of the 3 enemies, we've got a Revenant missing and 2 shotgunners from that really slow teleport portal. So I'll end the video here. Again, just a minor step up on the last map, really. This is pretty poor. Could have easily filled in those triangles for the upper bit there. So just goes to show what a lack of awareness will make for you, really. Nothing inherently wrong with having a strange floor design. It's just having it be quite ugly and mirrored on the ceiling was a mistake. Anyway, until next time.